very good morning. Good to have you with us. What's the first thing you would tell a consumer when he says, listen, you know what, I want to go out there, increase my credit limit to go and shop on Black Friday? Is that a no-no?
Well, it could be a yes. Even for myself and yourself, we could have a purchase we really want, and the price could be right. The very first thing I'd almost say is calm down, right? In the hype of Black Friday, it's become a mainstay event around the world. It's not just a Friday, it's now an entire week with Cyber Monday as well. So on one hand, you could have amazing specials. On the other hand, you could be so tempted to take on debt you shouldn't really be taking on.
And when we look at the South African economy, we are a very indebted society already at the present moment. You're saying, on the other hand, there could be one or two of those deals that could be worth it. But are we talking about FMCG goods? Are we talking about big ticket items?
Well, what we saw last year was in Black Friday week, almost 130,000 new accounts were opened just in 1 week. And compared to a typical month, it's almost a 37% increase in terms of new accounts being opened. On top of that, almost 21% of credit limits were extended. So there's a fair bit of activity happening. So what are the purchases? We found that last year, almost 50% of the purchases or the increases came from electronics, furniture, and retail stores. So it's a combination from furniture to washing machines, all the way to high electronics.
Okay. As the TransUnion, are you going out there, talking to consumers, trying to educate them on how to actually spend their money, not just on Black Friday? I know we're focusing on Black Friday here, but obviously this goes beyond Black Friday as well. So
TransUnion is the oldest credit bureau in South Africa, started in 1901. One of the key mandates of being a credit bureau is giving people information to help them take control of their lives. Now, what's scary for you and I is that there are 25 million active credit consumers in the SA market. Every year we give one free credit report to consumers with all our digital and physical channels. Only 400,000 a year take up their credit reports. Now, it's quite scary. To your point, we're a highly indebted society, and maybe people don't want to hear bad news, but information is truly power. And my simple and most interesting tip is get access of your credit report, understand your exposure, understand what you're indebted for before you take on new debt.
Do we as consumers, do we know our limit? If we don't, how do we get to understand, listen, you know what, I'm getting paid 500 Rand, I can't spend 600 Rand. It seems sometimes to escape us. I mean, how do we get over that? How do we change?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, I go back to information, right? If you have your report, you are able to understand every single account you have, how you've paid your account, what's going into arrears, how much available capacity or limit you have on the current facility. So knowing that tells you what you should be able to spend relative to what salary you have. The second thing, though, which is a really good tip, is with all these wonderful specials coming out, what do you really need versus what do you want? You may find that you really could do with a new washing machine because the washing machine has been broken for 3 years, and that's the item you need, versus buying a really big television that you don't need because you've got 3 other big televisions. It's about being judicious at a tough time.
I want a television.
You want a television?
Just kidding. Okay, we talk about consumers going to increase their credit lines and so forth. Are the lenders also being irresponsible to a certain extent, considering how we are such an indebted society?
Well, I think we are an indebted society. As part of every credit lender, they all work under the National Credit Act and the National Credit Regulator. So there should be responsibility into how they lend. Every single person does get assessed for that. Having said that, Black Friday is now a mainstay part of the strategy for every retailer and furniture producer and retailer. So it's a balance, right? The biggest event for selling is now in Black Friday, leading up to Christmas. Equally so for the consumer, we are looking to either save up to that event or maybe potentially overextend yourself at that point. So it's a balancing act. The likes of TransUnion and other retailers must proactively put the consumer education out there, tell them the tips they need, but equally so, as consumers, we've got to take control back. Having 3% of consumers access their credit reports isn't a good stat. We've got to find more ways to get information to the consumer.
Yep, it's like gambling, isn't it? The house always wins because it is Black Friday, because your retailer has come out in the black, and basically us as consumers end up in the red the day after.
Absolutely. I think that is the way it could end up if we don't take back control. So my argument's actually quite balanced. I'd love as a consumer, and so should you, to get a really good special. But if we aren't able to organize ourselves to better know where we stand, for many consumers, you earlier said we're already highly indebted. Know what that means to you before you take on more debt.
Okay, so personalize it, make it a very personal issue.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you so much for chatting with us there. Lee Like from Consumer Credit Reporting Agency TransUnion.